Welcome back to Daybreak. Many thanks indeed for keeping it Citizen TV. Well, at this moment, joining me in studio for our big interview this morning is the NEMA Director General, Professor Geoffrey Wahungu. Prof, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for finding time to be here with us today. And obviously, we've called him because of one of the big stories from last night. You must know by now that a Java coffee house, a Shell petrol station were among businesses, premises that were affected, and an operation targeting illegal structures in Kileleshwa that happened yesterday. And this demolition was sanctioned by his body, that is NEMA. The agency said the building was put up on riparian land, and there was also some speculation that it was also on a road reserve. To get more details about this now, let me engage the Director General on that particular matter. Director General, once again, thank you. I want to find out from you, this premises has been in use for since the 1970s. We're talking almost 40 years now, if not more. Why now? How did we come to what we saw yesterday?
Thank you, Wahiga. What we saw yesterday, that building was not the first one that we have put down. I do not understand why it raised so much attention. We've been demolishing structures on Grogan, along Nairobi River, Grogan area, and Globe Cinema for a while now.
And you're saying, well, it doesn't create the headlines that yesterday's demolition did?
Yes. The building is encroaching on the riparian. We had marked it. It was very clear to everyone who was a client there that both the Java, the petrol station, and even the outlying building, which was a chemist, and the parking lot had all been marked. And they were sitting on the riparian. The owners knew. They were continuing to establish, for example, in the last week, they were putting additional infrastructure, including ATM machines there. And therefore, I think we also, our target to move there was actually to also ensure that there is no more loss as a result of more establishments coming up on that property. And therefore, to me, it is an illegality. It doesn't matter how long it has been there. Actually, most of those structures which we are talking about, for example, the tanks that are holding the petrol and the diesel and whatever fuels, were sitting on riparian land. So they were all on illegal land. Okay. And we didn't demolish anything outside of the setback limit. So just the section.
How much notice had the tenants and the owner of the premises been given?
All the demolitions we are doing now were sanctioned in 2016. So that is 2 years by a presidential committee, interministerial, and they were marked. And we again, 3 months ago, marked them again and gave these people notices. And even after 3 months, we did not act, another 2 weeks. So there has been adequate notice, and no one can complain that they did not know. What I think is the problem is that people don't pay attention to these notices until we start acting. And that is indeed the case with what we saw yesterday. Okay.
A section of Kenyans may have sort of applauded what you did, saying that the issue of riparian land is one that cannot be negotiated with. But they're asking some questions which I want to pose to you. Now, the first question is, who gave these premises the construction permits? Do you have that history?
We do. But construction permits have conditions. If for example, your plot abuts a riparian area or is next to a riparian area, we give you a permit and tell you to keep the setback limit of 6 meters. In Kenya now, anyone who is building already knows that. And therefore, I've had people asking, why did they get the permit in the first place? Everyone who is building next, whether it's a road reserve or any other public infrastructure, according to the law, you keep the distance. And therefore, every approval, even if they have our approval, it says keep 6 meters. The advantage they are taking is that a lot of the time, we do not have perhaps the capacity, or we cannot monitor everyone who is building. And sometimes these guys do it so fast and at night and all that. We are seeing now that there is an understanding about people paying more attention, because anyone who has got a license from NEMA, they are very clear if your area or the plot that you are building on touches a riparian area or a wetland, that there is a setback limit.
Okay. So
and
they
are
did,
aware.
So they did have the construction permits. They also did what? Who did the environmental impact assessment on the same location? Is it the developer on that site?
The experts.
The experts.
We have experts that are registered by us who do that, and they monitor for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this then raises now various questions, obviously, DG. For example, the Java Group CEO in a notice stated that before the branch was opened, that was back in 2015, they performed due diligence. They received all regulatory and statutory documentation and received all relevant approvals. Now this puts us in a bit of a dilemma, because on one hand, they are saying, in Vivo are saying that we had all the licenses we needed to operate. Residents of Kileleshwa say that plot has been there since the 70s, but you now come in and say it's illegal, it's on riparian land, and it must be brought down. Does that make sense?
NEMA has no issues with Java or whoever is operating. It is the building that we have a problem. We don't have a problem with the plot being there. There are so many plots next to riparian. What we have a problem with is infrastructure or a section of the building that is encroaching on the riparian area, and that is what we demolished. So anything outside of that riparian area, I do not know the due diligence they did.
Would it have been easier to deny them?
Because since 2016, that building has been marked, and it is known it has been encroaching. And to us, it is just the encroached section that we have a problem with. The building is long, and if you look at the demolition, it doesn't affect the whole building. They still have a recourse to work with the area which is outside.
So you demolished what, 6 meters sort of from the riverbed?
Yes.
Wouldn't it have been easier to just deny them the license if you've had, were there no concerns? Did your inspectors not go on the ground and realize that, wait a minute, even if we give them the license for this, clearly their plan is to get closer to the river?
You cannot anticipate that because the land is big enough. This is impunity. You can see very clearly that the petrol station is pulling back so that they can create enough space in the front for vehicles to move in through. The Java itself is at the extreme end of another building which is next to the road. So when someone has a plot which is enough to build, you give them a license and tell them to keep 6 meters. How they develop the remaining part is their business, and you cannot anticipate and tell them, I know. No one will know that they can have the odyssey to encroach on a riparian area. You cannot anticipate that, and it would be unfair to deny somebody the license because you think they'll do that. The only way we can deny the license is if we are very sure you bring to us development and plan that shows that that type of building cannot fit in the space which is provided. We ask you, please scale down so that you can leave the 6 meters.
Did that happen in this, did that happen in this particular matter?
We do not have the history. I don't have the history of this building. What is important to know is that the building has encroached, and they continued even to do. For example, the car park, that has come up even in the recent past. And there was no need to do that.
And that's what happened in that particular matter. I think for me what then concerns me is, so 2015 this building comes up. You say for the last 3 years it's been an issue of what, capacity? That you've not been able to crack down on this, because I think anyone who uses that road would have easily told you that, and you said that in 2016 you raised the warning, 3 months ago you raised the warning. Was it a capacity issue?
This work is not being done by NEMA alone, Wahiga. It is a multi-sectoral, multi-agency, interministerial work. The resources required to do that is not NEMA alone. So you require a lot of preparation to do what we are doing now. And therefore, time here to me is not of essence. What is important is that now we have the resources and the capacity to do these demolitions. And we have been planning for them, and now we are prepared and we are doing it.
I want to take the discussion beyond that location, but around that location then, many have asked, what about apartments opposite? What about apartments next to that location as well, which share sort of a common wall? What is their fate?
Every time something happens to you, if it's not a good thing, you are looking at your neighbor and getting jealous and asking, will they do the same to that? What I can assure Kenyans is that by the end of this exercise, we are going to leave no structure on the riparian.
Okay, so is that a yes, that the other structures around there that...
It is a yes.
Okay, do you have any timelines?
No.
Okay.
We have a plan.
What's your plan? Give us an idea of your plan. So that
what I can tell citizens who are encroaching on riparian is that all the notices we gave are expired. So any time we can come and demolish. But it's not our work to demolish because we are demolishing at a cost to the proponent. The owner of the building will pay us for the equipment. And therefore it's good for them to start early and demolish before we come. So our plan depends on our resources and our time. So we are doing it at our own time. We have our plan. We've given them adequate time. And therefore, we do not want to say we are going here today, we are going here tomorrow. Just do what is required of you. Move away from the riparian reserve. Keep off the riparian area. If you have encroached, move back, demolish your walls, demolish your buildings so that you can save material and also save the cost that we are going to slap on you for having to do it for you.
So the owner, for example, that property in Kileleshwa has an additional cost to bear with in addition to sort of what they'll have to do to clean up there.
The one we demolished?
From NEMA?
Yes. Because
of the cranes you used yesterday to demolish that property?
Yes.
A section of the press is stating that you have 4,000 structures earmarked for demolition in Nairobi because of being on riparian land. Is there any truth to that? Could the number be 4,000?
I cannot confirm that, but we have quite a few. And we're going to work through them at our own time and we'll clear them.
Okay, so that's almost a promise to those who will not move out of those.
The Nairobi Regeneration Program has timelines and deadlines, and we are working on those.
Any regrets in terms of how licenses have been issued by NEMA, whether in your term or in previous terms? Because there are those who say this is reactionary, that if sort of, because NEMA by now must be studying the trends of construction in Nairobi, they know that give a constructor an inch and they'll take a mile. Are you now more cautious as we give licenses that anyone even close to a riparian would be sort of constantly cautioned?
There is no work without challenges, especially regulatory work. So every experience is a lesson learned for us with regard to monitoring license conditions and even making them more stringent and creating awareness on the same. So this exercise is an awareness creation, and you can be sure, Wahiga, that the reason why perhaps we haven't received this much attention before is that we haven't really gone to take action. And since we have done, then going forward it becomes more easy for us, for our license conditions to be implemented to the letter.
So there is no culpability on the part of NEMA in terms of issuing licenses to individuals like this. For example, if you demolish a whole apartment block, which might happen, who gave the license for that?
We have been through that, Wahiga, and I've said the license conditions tell you if you have an acre of land which is touching on the riparian, the part next to the river is yours. How you use it is the prescription we give.
Okay.
And therefore that license says keep away from the river. You might have a license or you require a license. You do need a license. We cannot deny you in anticipation. But it is our work to ensure, and your work to ensure that you keep 6 meters or whatever. For large rivers, for example, it will be up to a maximum of 30 meters. And that is our work to ensure.
So we'll not see a situation where you bring down a whole structure. Because then one would wonder how so if, for example, if it's in a compound, and you bring down the whole building, that then must mean that the whole building is within that area.
If you envisage a situation, that could be the case in slum areas or informal settlements where somebody has really built right on top. But in other areas...
We've heard of Gikomba, Kamkunji, where the foundation is literally in the water.
Yes, but in other areas, for example, a large building, of course, there can be no building with a length of 6 meters, which is a commercial or a residence building. So we don't anticipate cases where a whole building is sitting on the riparian in some of the well-to-do suburbs.
Okay.
So it is sections of buildings, and mostly it's actually walls.
So you remain confident in the licensing structure of NEMA. I really want to get that out of you so that you've looked at this. There has been no sort of corruption, no sort of turning the eye by some of your inspectors on these particular matters, because these developments are built by wealthy contractors in many cases.
I said monitoring. We have weakness with regard to monitoring because we don't have enough staff. For example, in Nairobi, we have about 15 staff, and you can see the kind of developments we have to monitor every time.
15 staff members to monitor every property in
Nairobi.
How do you operate with such a staff?
Our structure is that we have to work very much with other lead agencies. We have to do a lot of information collection and basically a lot of coordination to be able to effectively use our staff. So basically, we struggle a bit with regards to keeping up. But the reason that we are able to market is that, for example, we have, for example, WARMA, Water Resource Authority now. Before we can issue a license on the riparian area, they come and peg for us. And therefore, when we are doing another license, the monitoring and whatever on the riparian is actually the Water Resource Authority who should monitor on our behalf. Then we have, for example, the National Construction Authority who will monitor the condition of the building and the structure. Then we have other agencies that work with us, for example, the water agencies, say for example, Nairobi Water on the sewerage and the way leaves. We have Water Regulatory Authority. We have many other agencies that work under us that will be an eye for us when this is happening. Let
me ask you a few questions that are coming in on SMS. Some are asking, and these have been a lot of allegations about certain properties within Nairobi. Some of the key ones are some in Westlands, certain malls, the Langata sort of intersection, Langata-Mbagathi intersection, and this is where it really floods during sort of the heavy rain season. What are those some of the properties that you've looked at? Some of the malls in Westlands and others on Langata Road?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have any timelines? Can you say before the end of the year, Kenyans? Because some say you went for a soft target. That this one you could deal with because it's a slightly smaller sort of construction, but big malls, NEMA might not go for them at the moment. What can you tell Kenyans about that?
Time will tell. We have a timeline. The Nairobi Regeneration Program has timelines.
Can you give us an idea of the timelines? Sort of 1 year, 5 years?
No, less than that.
Less than 1 year?
Yeah, 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There are many challenges, of course. When we have, can I say, laws allowing?
Okay.
Yeah, because you understand our position. We are a law enforcer, so we don't break the law. So we work within the law. And in fact, most of this preparation has been a legal battle to be where we are. And therefore, we are treading cautiously, but we are being very effective. And I can tell you, we will clear all the riparian encroachment in Nairobi, Wahiga, Maur. I'm assuring you that. In
the next 3 months or around that period?
The law allowing.
The law allowing. Yeah. What happens if somebody, a proprietor, takes you to court, accuses you of demolishing their property, even though they had all the licenses, all the approvals, and then now we as the taxpayers are forced to pay them because obviously they'll get compensation?
We are a regulatory agency, and we have a big legal department, and their work is just that.
So before you go to any property, they take a look at the law and how that demolition should be carried out? Yeah. Okay, let me just get your thoughts briefly on this. What is the reality of projects such as Green Park that seem to get NEMA go ahead, and then when it floods, the reality strikes there and suddenly they are demolished as well? What happens with such properties?
I don't get your question.
The one that was on Mombasa Road.
Yeah, we have had a debate here, me and you, on Green Park, if you remember.
I think that was with somebody else. I haven't had this discussion with you for some time.
Okay. What about? What's the
yes,
question?
I mean, so one then wonders, how did NEMA clear such a property? How was a developer allowed to build there, sell publicly, and then suddenly now it's...
The same answer I gave you. We issued a license with conditions. And I want to say again, that I've said before, that Green Park is not on riparian. And let it be clear to Kenyans about this interpretation of the law. Because tomorrow I'll come here and I'll be asked the same questions, and I have to be consistent. There are areas beyond the riparian area which can flood and are low-lying. And therefore, when you interpret the law, you have to look at such considerations. So they have not encroached on the riparian area, but they get flooded. So in which case, there are many engineering considerations to do when you are doing such structure. And it's the due diligence of the property owner, the engineers, and the contractors to actually consider that and put into consideration so that they can build structures in areas which are safe where they are not covered by the law. For example, flooding can happen even outside of the riparian areas.
So that one you can clarify and you repeat again that it's not on a riparian area, it's just on a sort of a flood-prone sort of scenario. And the law again does not have any limitations around that. You can still license a property to be built even if the area is known to have sort of flood. Do you give a warning as NEMA in scenarios like that? If
we knew, or if the terrain shows that, because a lot of things happen. For example, flooding is not as a result of, for example, consideration of the landscape. There are many things about the river channel that may cause flooding, which is unrelated to the area where the flooding is happening. When we have prior notice of that, we will caution the person who is building. But there are many other agencies. The engineering considerations should actually bring that out, and then that is also considered in the designs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think even to get this from you, and as we watched the story a bit earlier on about how the demolitions were done, is there a more humane way to do them? You saw the property owners, you saw tenants, employees today don't have jobs. Is there another way to do it, or is this the only way?
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a more humane way, and the humane way is for the owner to actually demolish themselves. Actually, it's not our work to demolish. You're actually putting government resources into something that we should not actually be doing. This is a waste of the taxpayers' money. And that's why we are coming back and surcharging those we have to demolish for. And therefore, the humane way, first, is not to build on the riparian. And number two, if you for example, now you know we are coming, it's for you to move back and demolish them yourselves. You'll save equipment, you'll save, on costs, and then we don't have to surcharge you. And then you can do it at your own time, because we gave 3 months, an addition, 2 years. People are still staring and watching and wondering if we'll ever come. And we have come, but the way we are doing it is a message.
You're trying to send a message.
Yeah, but we'll eventually do that, because if you are encroaching and you move back now, we are not going to come and follow you up and say, why were you sitting on this? Just do it yourself, and that will be very good. It's a humane way. For example, for those in rented buildings, you are a tenant and you know you are sitting on the riparian land. Why wait until NEMA comes to demolish? Why can't you move your family, evacuate your family?
The landlord assures you that the case is in court. It's being discussed at a very high level. You have nothing to worry about.
No, you are an adult. The landlord is an adult. You should be able to reason at that level and yourself.
Fair enough. Let me read you some SMSs here. Someone asking, Mwaneki from Kilimani, will NEMA clean the waters of River Kirishwa? I think that's the river next to that property, and punish the people throwing sewage in the river after the demolitions. It's pathetic living near that river.
Yes. We are working as a multi-agency team. The Nairobi River Regeneration Program is a multi-agency undertaking. One of the problems why we are not able to know where the point sources of pollution are is because of this encroachment. Once we have a well leaf, it is now easy for us to point out where these are and do remediation. We can actually follow them up and know who is the polluter. So this is actually an easy way to be able to access and know who the polluters are and surcharge them and actually control that pollution together with our partners.
Kadhuri Murungi, who says a member for South Imenti constituency, says NEMA should keep good surveillance and stop such developments during construction. They could have issued stop orders once the construction started. Why should you wait for investors to put up money as it is investments and then come and destroy them? So that's one of the concerns. There's a saying, justice delayed is justice denied. I could add, enforcement delayed is enforcement denied. And I think that's what he's saying. Why, again?
Yeah, I would like to encourage Mheshimiwa to do due diligence. And he's going to tell me, anyone we are demolishing now has had contact with us before and just ignored, or at the same time just build up very fast because they know that we are thin on the ground and cannot be able to sit and monitor them. It is completely impractical to expect that NEMA can sit at every building that is coming up to ensure that it doesn't encroach. Citizens need to take responsibility and be good guardians of the environment. And therefore, I can assure you, there is no one among the people who are coming, either one or two of all those that we are coming into contact the first time. They knew, but they just ignored and perhaps thought that we will never be able to do that. Some rush to court. This kind of grabbing, it is just impunity, it's greed. And there is no way a greedy person, we don't have enough policing power to control greed.
So you said what, to send a message, if you send a message, you hope that Kenyans will listen, or Nairobians?
Yeah.
Okay. So right now in that area, you can tell us that there are people who you've given notice around there, and right now you're expecting them to move, and you hope that they'll pay attention because of what you did?
Yes.
Okay. And they have what, 3 days, 4 days? Give or take?
Give or take.
Okay.
Based on our capacity, but we are coming. We are making good progress.
On the same.
Yeah.
If I think my last question to you on this particular matter would be, is anything going to happen with the capacity issue? So that 5 years from now, we don't have a situation where new buildings are put up again, and then again, because capacity, you are not able to monitor them. Is there sort of a long-term plan to deal with that if capacity is your biggest issue as NEM?
We are working on it, but I can tell you also that, and I said before the opening, that when we take decisive action like we've done, it helps us a lot going forward. What you might find is that from now on, anyone who is doing that or who had that impunity, the greedy people who want to grab all the land and they leave others for development and grab riparian areas, will think twice before they do that. And what does that do? It helps us that we don't have to police so much, and much of the work we'll do to awareness creation and pay our attention to other services to Kenyans for cleaning the environment. Fair
enough. I think it's only fair that I read for you a text of a viewer who supports what you're doing. They've actually called you a hero. They're saying, keep up the spirit. This is Nyingi from Limuru. A lot asking about a lot of other different areas, shopping malls, some of which I've asked you about. They are saying, when are you coming to deal with those? Westlands comes up quite a bit. So I think you will need to tell us what's going on in regards to that. And of course, the cleaning of rivers as well. Well, thank you so much, DG, for finding time to be here with us this morning and clarify a few of the questions that Kenyans have had in regards to what actually happened yesterday. Thank you again for making time for us today. Well, that's how we wrap up this interview, of course, but let's keep the conversation going on social media. At this time, I want to hand you over to Fred Indimuli, who has an update for us.